I'm Garrett, I'm 27, and until a few months ago, I thought I knew what family meant. To me, that word used to feel safe, like home. But lately, it's felt more like a knife I keep pretending not to notice. Growing up, I was always the quiet one. Not because I had nothing to say, people just didn't care to listen. Especially not when Elise was in the room. My older sister Elise. She's loud, confident, and has this sharp charm that makes people either adore her or fear her. My parents. They adored her. Still do. If she was the sun, I was just Pluto. Always floating on the outside. So when she suggested a family vacation to Italy, I was shocked she even remembered I existed. She brought it up on a group video call one evening in April. "Let's make it big," Elise said, twirling her wine glass. Venice, Florence, Tuscany. One last hurrah before Mom and Dad retire. Dad nodded like it was the best idea ever. Mom clapped. I smiled quietly, just happy to be included. "I can handle the bookings," I offered. "Flights, hotel, car, everything. I've got points saved up, and I just got my bonus from work." "That'd be awesome," Elise said casually. "Just send me the total. We'll all pay our share." I believed her. Like a fool. Over the next few weeks, I planned everything: round-trip flights, a 6-night hotel in Florence, a boat tour in Venice, a Tuscany wine tasting. It was over $5,000 total. I put it all on my card. I sent them the receipts. I followed up. "Hey, just a reminder," I messaged in the family group chat. "Haven't gotten your shares yet." Elise left me on read. Mom texted back, "We'll sort it out soon." Dad just sent a thumbs up emoji. I should have pulled out, but some part of me, some desperate, hopeful part, just wanted to believe this trip might bring us closer. So I packed, took time off work, bought new shoes even, because Elise once mocked me for looking like a lost professor. The day of the flight came. I arrived early, 6:15 a.m. Our flight was at 9. I stood near the check-in counter, heart racing, eyes scanning the crowd. At 6:40, I saw them, Mom and Dad walking ahead, Elise dragging her designer suitcase behind like she owned the airport. I waved. They didn't wave back. Elise strutted past me like I was invisible. My mom gave me a tiny nod. Dad looked like he didn't even recognize me. "Elise," I called, trying to catch up. "Hey, where's your passport?" She turned, smiled, and said, "Oh, forgot to mention. We didn't book you a seat." I blinked. "What?" "I booked all our tickets. I have the confirmations." "Yeah, but remember when you asked me to confirm the final passenger list?" She said, smirking. "I might have left you out." "You what?" She shrugged. "Oops. I figured you'd cancel last minute anyway. You always do." I turned to Mom and Dad, waiting for someone to say something, anything. Mom just chuckled. "You're always so sensitive, Garrett." Then, they left. They walked past the gate without looking back. I stood there, alone, at the airport, watching strangers rush past, families laughing, couples taking selfies. I found a bench, sat down. My suitcase felt heavier than ever. I'd been left out of birthdays, group chats, family photos, but this was deliberate, public. They didn't know one thing though. They didn't know every single flight, hotel, and tour was booked on my card. The tickets were in my name. Elise never asked. She just assumed. So, no, they weren't going to Italy. At least not with my reservations. If this story hit you deep, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. It helps us grow and bring more true life stories like this to you. Your support means the world. As I sat on that cold bench, I looked down at my phone. I pulled up the airline app. 3 names: Elise, Mom, Dad. They were already through security, smiling, thinking they were off on their dream vacation. But what they didn't realize was, every ticket, every tour, every hotel room had my name stamped on it. I clicked, Manage Trip. My fingers hovered over the screen. Then I tapped Cancel Reservation. A final warning popped up. Are you sure? This action cannot be undone. I stared at it for 1 second. Then I whispered to myself, yes. And I tapped Confirm. 10 minutes later, the chaos began. My phone started buzzing, over and over. Buzz, buzz. Buzz. The first message was from Elise. Did you mess with the flights? Our boarding passes aren't scanning. Then from Mom. Garrett, what's going on? They said our tickets aren't valid. Then Dad. All caps, as usual. Fix this. We can't board. I leaned back on the bench and smiled. I looked up at the terminal screen. Flight to Florence, final boarding. Their seats were now gone. Vanished. The system had erased them like they were never even booked. What they didn't know was, my premium travel card came with cancellation insurance. Every dollar I spent. Refund pending. Charges voided. The airline didn't even question it. As far as they knew, the trip never happened. I sat quietly while the texts kept coming. Elise again. What did you do, Mom? Garrett. We are stranded. This is not funny. Dad, you're paying for this. I'm serious. Then Elise again. My luggage is already on the plane. Do you know how expensive this trip was? You better fix this. That one almost made me laugh. Expensive. I paid for the whole thing. They didn't send $1. Even the hotel upgrade, the one Elise insisted on because she needed a deluxe view for her Instagram, I paid for that too. And I wasn't even supposed to be on the trip. So I typed one message. Just one. You didn't think I'd come anyway, remember? Then I turned off my phone. I leaned back, took a deep breath, and smiled. For once, I felt something I hadn't felt around them in years, control. All the times I paid for family dinners. All the times I covered last-minute bills. All the holidays I spent fixing things in Mom and Dad's house while Elise posted beach photos from Cancun. And every time, I thought, maybe this time they'll see me. But they never did. They only saw what I could give. They never saw me. Not anymore. I walked into the airport lounge, used my travel pass, and sat down with a hot cappuccino. Just as I took my first sip, a news update flashed across the TV. 3 passengers were escorted from a boarding gate after causing a disturbance. Airline officials say the passengers became aggressive after being denied boarding. I didn't even need to look. I knew. My phone buzzed again. Elise. FaceTime request. I stared at it as it rang. Her name flashing on my screen. Then, I hit decline. Because some things, once cancelled, don't need to be reinstated. If you've ever felt like the forgotten one in your family, or if this story hit you deep, like, share, and subscribe. Because you deserve to be seen, heard, and respected. I didn't answer their calls. Not Elise's desperate messages. Not Mom's guilt texts. Not Dad's angry FaceTime attempts. Because what none of them realized, not yet, was that the hotel they were dreaming about, the one with the rooftop breakfast, the courtyard view, and 4-star service, that was booked under my name too. And check-in was in 7 hours. In Florence. A long way from the gate they were just kicked out of. I sank deeper into the leather lounge chair. The place was quiet, almost too quiet. Just the soft hum of a cappuccino machine and distant airport announcements echoing off the walls. Outside the glass windows, planes crawled along the runway like sleepy giants. Somewhere out there was mine. A first-class window seat, all to myself. While Elise, Mom, and Dad were probably yelling at a poor gate agent, demanding answers they didn't deserve. I had no one to rush for. No one to accommodate. No one to pretend for. For the first time in a long while, I was free. That freedom didn't last long though. My phone buzzed again. Unknown number. The message said, "Don't do anything stupid. We can work this out. Maddie." Maddie. I stared at the name, and then it clicked. It was Elise. New number, again. Probably dodging another ex or a credit agency. A second message followed. "Honey, we're sorry. Can you call me when you get a second? We're stranded. We just need to talk, Mom." If she'd sent that 6 years ago, maybe I'd have fallen for it. But today, after they laughed, literally laughed, while walking onto that plane without me. No. Instead of replying, I opened my hotel app. The reservation was right there. My name, my card, my booking, 6 nights, Florence, 2 double beds and an extra roll away, just in case. They weren't even listed as guests. I'd left the form blank, like a part of me already knew I shouldn't trust them. And now, I hovered over the "Cancel Reservation" button. I didn't press it, not yet. Instead, I clicked, edit guest information, and typed a new name. Maxwell Price. My college roommate. One of the few people who ever treated me like I mattered. We lost touch over the years, but he still texted me sometimes, usually something like, "Still alive, ghost." So I pulled out my phone and texted him. "Hey, man, you busy this week? Free trip to Florence. Hotels covered. First night's dinner is on me." 30 seconds later, he replied, "Are you joking?" "Nope. I'm packing already. Just tell me where and when." A grin crept across my face. And this time, it wasn't fake. It wasn't forced for some family photo or dinner I paid for. This was real. Then, like clockwork, my phone lit up. FaceTime call. Dad. Decline. 2 seconds later, another one. Decline again. Then came the text. "This isn't how family treats each other." Now they wanted to talk about family. After all the jokes, the dismissals, the times I was treated like the unpaid assistant. Now that they were grounded and panicking, now TLH cared. I didn't reply, but I did take a screenshot. Just in case guilt tried to sneak in later. Because I knew it would. That little voice, that conditioning, that old instinct to feel bad for people who never felt bad for me. But not this time. I was ready. I opened my laptop and pulled up an old email draft I'd written months ago. It was something I never meant to send, just a place to dump everything I was too scared to say. This time, I started typing. Subject: why I left. Greater than you always assumed I'd be there. You never said it out loud, but I saw it. The way you leaned on me when bills came due. The way I was always the backup babysitter. The quiet brother. The afterthought. While Elise was the golden child, I was the ghost. But I was watching. I was learning. And today, you remembered who made this trip possible. Every booking, every hotel, every seat, had my name on it. You walked onto that plane without me. And now, I'm in Florence, sipping espresso, breathing, free, while you're at the terminal, unpacking. And just like that, I hit save. Not send. Not yet. Because sometimes silence speaks louder than words. If this story hit home, if you've ever been the one in the background, overlooked, used, or just forgotten, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Let's make space for people like Garrett to finally be seen. I didn't send that last line. You laughed. Now I'm boarding it without you. But man, it felt good just to write it. By the time they called my boarding group, the tension that had been sitting in my chest for weeks had melted away. I walked to the gate with calm steps, passport in hand. The flight attendant scanned my ticket. She smiled and said, "Enjoy your flight, Mr. Whitmore." I smiled back. "Oh, I will." I turned off my phone as I stepped onto the plane. Because the real part, the part that mattered, was just beginning. And Elise, she wasn't finished. Not by a long shot. As the plane lifted off, I leaned back in my first-class seat and let the champagne warm my throat. And for the first time in years, I felt peace. Not the fake kind you find at family dinners when everyone's pretending to be okay. This was different. This was real. The clouds unfolded like silk below us, and I watched quietly, sipping and breathing, no guilt, no pressure, no performance. I landed in Florence the next morning to a clear blue sky and a warm breeze. My phone powered on with a small buzz. Then another. Then 10 more. All from Elise. Some messages were guilt bombs. "You've made your point. Enough is enough." Some were passive-aggressive. "You do know how embarrassing this was for Mom, right?" Others were full-on dramatic. "We're already in debt over this. You ruined our trip. Hope you're happy." Guilt tried to creep in. But it bounced right off. Because I was happy. For once, I didn't feel like the extra piece of luggage nobody asked for. An hour later, I met Max at the airport. He looked jet-lagged, hungry, and confused, with mismatched socks and one sneaker barely tied. But when he saw me, "Dude," he grinned, pulling me into a hug. "Tell me this isn't some elaborate prank." I handed him a fresh croissant. "Welcome to Florence." The hotel was better than I remembered. Huge rooms, marble floors, complimentary wine on arrival, views of the Arno River. Max walked through the lobby like he didn't belong. "This place is insane," he whispered. "I feel like I'm about to get kicked out just for breathing." I laughed. "Breathe. You earned this. We hit every item on the itinerary. The boat tour Elise had begged for. We did it, just the two of us, while the guide sang opera under the bridges. The cathedrals Mom had saved on Pinterest. We toured every single one. And the pasta, endless. We only stopped for espresso or gelato, or to sit in a piazza doing nothing but soaking in peace. For the first time in years, I felt like I was actually living. But then I checked my phone. Something was off. No new messages for almost a day. No calls. No guilt texts. Not even Elise's usual, unamused. Then it popped up. Elise price tagged you in a post. I tapped. Big mistake. It was public. It was ugly. Funny how the quiet ones turn out to be the most heartless. My brother stranded us at the airport after promising a family trip to Italy. He even canceled our hotel. Mom's been crying for days. We were humiliated. If you see this, just know you broke this family. You chose revenge over love, and that's on you. She posted pictures too, Dad with his head in his hands, Mom wiping her eyes, clearly exaggerated for effect. And the comments. Brutal. What kind of brother does that? Wow, he sounds toxic. Cut him off. He clearly doesn't care. I stared at the screen for a while. Not because I was surprised they made me the villain. I expected that. What broke me was how easily everyone believed it. As if the years of me covering dinner bills, fixing pipes, bailing Elise out of messes she wouldn't talk about, never happened. I felt the familiar weight rise in my chest. And then I made a decision. No more silence. They don't get to write my story while I sit back and watch. So I opened Facebook, took a deep breath, and typed. Funny how you left out the part where you didn't book me a seat. Funny how you forgot to pay me back for the $7,800 I put on my credit card. Funny how you laughed while boarding a flight you never planned to let me be on. I didn't cancel a family trip. I canceled being treated like I didn't matter. If that ruined your vacation, maybe think about who really broke this family. Then I attached receipts, flight bookings, hotel confirmation, screenshots of the family group chat. And I hit post. Then I logged out. The fallout was immediate. My inbox exploded again. But this time, the tone had changed. Aunt Sharon messaged. I had no idea what was really going on. I'm so sorry, Garrett. My cousin Rachel. That was so brave. I'm proud of you. Even one of Elise's old friends DM'd me. She's always been like that. Good for you. Have you ever stood up for yourself, even when it meant standing alone? Then you understand this story. Like, share, and subscribe. Because your voice deserves to be heard, no matter how long it was ignored. Some goodbyes set you free. It wasn't Elise's Facebook post that shook me. It wasn't even the strangers in the comments calling me heartless. It was the silence from my parents. Days passed. No calls. No messages. Just nothing. Until the third day. I was sitting with Max at a rooftop cafe, the sun setting over Florence, casting orange light across the skyline. The breeze smelled like basil and fresh bread. My phone buzzed. Dad. I stared at the screen, then picked up on the third ring. He didn't say, hello. He just let out a long, tired sigh. I suppose you think you taught us a lesson. I didn't answer. He kept going. Your mother hasn't eaten properly in 2 days. Still, I said nothing. Finally, his voice cracked, just a little. If this is about money, we'll pay you back. Just come home. That made me chuckle, quietly, not out of spite, just exhaustion. It's not about money, I said calmly. It's about respect, and how none of you ever gave it to me. He went quiet, long enough that I thought the call had dropped. Then he said something I never thought I'd hear. What do you want from us? Not angry, not emotional, just hollow, like a man standing in front of a house he burned down, asking where the fire came from. And for the first time in my life, I didn't bend. I didn't try to soften the truth. I told him what I had been holding in for years. I don't want anything from you. Not anymore. Then I hung up. No shouting, no guilt, no fake promises, just silence. And it felt like peace. The rest of the trip. Surreal. Max and I extended our stay by 2 more days. We wandered museums Elise never cared about. Sat on steps of old churches just listening to street musicians. On our last night, we sat by the Arno River, watching the city lights shimmer on the water. Max raised his glass to cutting ties. I raised mine back to choosing peace. When I flew home, there was no one at the airport. No, we miss you, text. No dramatic confrontation. No guilt trap waiting at my door. Just silence. And it was perfect. 2 weeks later, I packed up my apartment and moved to another city. New job. New number. New peace. It's been 9 months. They haven't reached out. And I haven't looked back. People say, family is forever. But sometimes, the most important family you build is the one you give yourself, through honesty, boundaries, and choosing yourself for once. I've never felt lighter. If you've ever had to walk away from people who should have loved you better. If you've ever chosen peace over pretending, then this story is for you. Please support the channel by liking, sharing, and subscribing. Your support helps us share more real stories that matter. You're not alone, and your story matters too.